In this video, we are going to be talking about where does low self-esteem come from and 3 ways you can boost it to improve your self-confidence. I will also be sharing many personal examples as I used to suffer a lot with low self-esteem. So everything I will be sharing today will be things that I've personally put into practice that have made a big difference in my life. But firstly, let's get into where does low self-esteem actually come from? Well, it will vary depending on the individual, but there's many factors which can play a part. For example, you may develop low self-esteem if you have a difficult relationship with one of your parents growing up. It could be that you were bullied as a kid, or maybe you were in some bad friendships. It could be that maybe you didn't do well in your education in school, or maybe you had a specific trauma that happened in your life. But somewhere along the way, as we were growing up, we experienced something that made us feel a certain way about ourselves. We might start to feel not good enough, unworthy, and unconsciously over time from these experiences we then start to adopt certain negative beliefs about ourselves, which we then might carry with us through our life, and this manifests into low self-esteem. And this actually happened to me growing up for various different reasons. But when I was a young kid, unfortunately my mum had a car accident, and this left her with spinal damage in her back, which she still suffers with to this day. And she went from being able to pick me up and be there as my main support to actually having to rest in bed all the time, and she was not well. And as a kid, I think I didn't really understand what was going on and why my mum wasn't well and wasn't able to pick me up and play with me anymore. And in some way, I internalized this as a sense of rejection. I started to think that maybe there was something wrong with me. I also have dyslexia, and in school I was always in the bottom of each subject. My favourite subjects were sports and art, but back in school the most important is always maths, science and English, and I was not good at them. And there was times where I got made fun of. You know, we were seen as like the special kids and like the stupid kids, and people would say passing comments, and that really lowered my self-esteem because I started to then believe that I was actually stupid, and I started to adopt these beliefs that actually I was lower than other people. However, eventually with therapy and reading lots of books, I've managed to build my self-esteem back up, and so I'm going to share 3 things I did in this video with you. Number 1, start receiving compliments. This used to be something I used to struggle with so much, but I never used to allow myself to receive compliments because I didn't think I deserved them. And so my mind and my low self-esteem would always try and twist things around. When someone said something positive, I would be like, oh, they felt like they had to say that, or they felt bad for me and that's why they said that. And when someone would say a compliment, I would like try and put it down or downplay it. And the thing I didn't realize for so long is that I was literally blocking myself from receiving love from others because I didn't feel worthy enough. Because of my low self-esteem and my beliefs about myself, I was then further perpetuating this low self-esteem cycle by constantly never letting myself receive love from others. And if you're doing this too, you need to stop. When we have low self-esteem, we often struggle to allow ourselves to feel worthy, to feel deserving. And so one of the first ways we can try and break this cycle is by allowing ourselves to receive such as a compliment. Even if at first you don't believe the compliment, it doesn't matter. But you at least need to start practicing stopping yourself from disregarding them. And so a simple way to do this is that when you receive a compliment, all you have to do is say thank you. Let me show you an example of how I used to take compliments when I had low self-esteem. Hey Heather, you look really good today, by the way. Are you talking to me? In fact, when I woke up this morning, I literally thought I looked like a piece of shit. But now our new self, who is working on receiving compliments, isn't going to do that and is going to do this. Thank you. 2 words. Thank you. And I'm not gonna lie, it might feel uncomfortable at first, but you need to stop yourself from putting yourself down. And you might think this is such a small act and how is this gonna make a difference? But firstly, your low self-esteem didn't just happen overnight. It happened through time. Bit by bit, through your experiences, your self-esteem was chipped away at. And so in order to build back up our self-esteem, it also takes time. And every small act that we take compounds and builds up. There's this concept called confirmation bias. And what this means is that the mind has been proven to have a tendency to search for and interpret information in a way that confirms or supports our prior beliefs or values. So if you have low self-esteem, guess what? Your mind is going to try and look for ways to confirm those negative things about you. And it can literally be in the most micro moments of your day. Maybe someone at work is having a bit of a bad day and they seem a bit off to you. And your mind takes this as a sign as, yep, I knew they didn't like me. Or maybe your boss pulls you up on something at work that you made a mistake on, and your mind says, see, I know I'm stupid. I can't get anything right. Our minds are constantly seeking out ways to confirm what we believe to be true, and so it will twist reality to try and fit this belief. And the reason I'm bringing that up here is because not only is your mind trying to seek out information to confirm your beliefs are true, but it will also disregard any information that doesn't align with your beliefs, such as a compliment. So one step we can make towards breaking this cycle is allowing yourself to receive when others are giving to you. Because when someone is giving you a compliment, it is a gift and you are worthy of receiving it. Now, number 2 is stop with the negative language. If you were to put a kid in a room and tell him every day that he's stupid, how do you think that kid's going to feel? Probably not very nice. In fact, long term, if you were to do this repeatedly, that kid is eventually going to believe he is stupid, because he's being told he is stupid. Because our language is powerful and holds great meaning. And so one of the first things I started to notice when I worked on my own self-esteem was the language that I was using to talk to myself. And actually I noticed it was very, very negative and actually quite mean. Internally, I was speaking to myself in a way that I wouldn't dare speak to anybody else, such as a kid or a friend. And when I'm talking about language, I'm talking about it in all formats, such as even self-deprecating jokes. Because I used to joke around all the time that I was stupid. Like I said, I suffered with dyslexia in school, and if I did something wrong or made a mistake, I would just again joke that I'm stupid and I'm slow and this is me. And even though in the moment I didn't feel like I was being negative towards myself, the truth is that I did believe those things. And so one of the first ways we can try and change our beliefs is by stop reinforcing it through our own language. Because the thing is, you probably wouldn't joke that your friend is fat, would you? Because that would be hurtful. If your friend made a mistake, hopefully you wouldn't be calling them names like stupid or idiot, would you? Because it wouldn't be very nice. And so then it begs the question that why are you doing it to yourself? And this is hard to change at first. When I made the commitment that I'm going to stop saying things out loud about myself, guess what happened? I still said them out loud because I was in such a habit of constantly putting myself down. But it's about the willingness to try, and over time it gets less and less, and sometimes I'd say something and then I'd reflect on it and be like, I shouldn't have said that about myself. Next time in that same situation, I'm going to try and not speak about myself like that. So I'm going to challenge you to try and become more aware of your own language and stop speaking to yourself in a way that you would never speak to a kid or your best friend. And number 3, get comfortable with setting boundaries. Honestly, I used to be a hardcore people pleaser, literally my whole childhood. I used to say yes to things I didn't want to do. I would hang out with people I didn't even like. And honestly, I ended up super unhappy. Shock, right? I was constantly sacrificing myself for the sake of others' feelings. I didn't want confrontation. I didn't want to upset anybody. I didn't want anybody to dislike me. And in this process, I ended up only resenting myself. Because of my low self-esteem, I didn't realize that my needs were also important. I thought so little of myself, and this manifested in me never voicing what I truly wanted or what I wanted to do. And it took me a long time to realize that my needs and what I want to do and what makes me happy in life is so much more important than other people's reaction to my boundaries. That their reaction isn't my emotion to carry. I started to learn how to speak up for myself, and even though this was so uncomfortable and still is, I knew it was important so that I could have peace of mind. And so let me give you an example to kind of portray what I mean. But I made friends with someone a few years ago, and the friendship just became very intense very quickly. We were working together and we just had the same humour and just connected on so many different levels that we just instantly became very comfortable with each other and became very close friends. For the sake of this video, I'm going to give him the name Matt, but that isn't his name, but just to make it easier to explain. And after some time we were getting on, and he started to say a few things in our conversations that made me feel uncomfortable. He started to talk about women in a certain way that actually I didn't like, and it made me feel uncomfortable. And so I expressed this to him and I said, hey, look, Matt, I don't think it's okay to say things like that, and it doesn't make me feel comfortable. I don't really like it, so please can you stop saying it? And at first he was apologetic and he said, sorry, I won't do it again, I didn't realise. And we continued, but then it happened again. And so, I let it slide a few times, and then I was like, hey Matt, listen, remember I said that I don't like when you do this? Please can you respect what I'm saying and don't do it again? And again, he said sorry and we got on with things. And eventually I realized that he just kept ignoring my boundaries. He would say he's sorry, but his actions didn't change. And there was many other things that happened. It wasn't just this one scenario. And eventually it showed me that I didn't feel he respected me. And so in the end, I chose to walk away from this friendship. And honestly, when I was honest about how I felt and what was happening, he really just turned on me. Now, I don't want to get into very specifics because I still believe in giving a bit of respect to this privacy of the situation, and I'm not here to just badmouth anyone. I'm only telling you this to portray my point. But when I was honest about how I was feeling, he was being rude to me and calling me names. But ultimately, the alternative of me not voicing my needs and how I felt would have been to continue to get disrespected and to continue to feel uncomfortable in situations. And so I was respecting myself when I was voicing my needs, but it took me a long time to get comfortable with voicing my needs. And even now, it's still uncomfortable, especially with new friendships or new relationships. And it's an ongoing practice. I think it's forever going to be uncomfortable because it requires you to be vulnerable, sit there with your uncomfortable emotions, and also what ultimately happens and how that person reacts is out of your control. You can't control the other person's reaction, but you have to learn that the other person's feelings and reactions are not your responsibility. And this isn't me saying, by the way, you can say what you want and do what you want, and if that person gets upset, well, that's not on you. You do need to learn to navigate your boundaries in a kind way and in a healthy communication style. But we need to learn that other people's reactions to our boundaries is not our responsibility, because the reality is that not everyone will accept your boundaries. Personally, I've lost quite a few friends to expressing my boundaries, and that's okay, because they weren't my true friends. It takes a level of maturity for both of you to be able to talk openly about your feelings and navigate through those together. And the truth is, you have to start being okay with being seen as the bad guy. Like I said, I was a people pleaser and I didn't want anybody to dislike me, because my self-esteem was so low that if someone disliked me, in my head, that kind of defined me. I was like, damn, if they think I'm a bad person, that must be because I'm a bad person. That confirmation bias. But part of learning to set boundaries and building up your own self-esteem is allowing yourself to be misunderstood. Like I said with this guy Matt, who was my friend, he probably saw me in a very bad way at the end of the friendship. But that's okay. I'm not here to prove myself to anybody. I don't need his validation. It's unfortunate that that's how it happened, but I'm glad I chose myself. And the thing is, whether you like it or not, you could be the nicest person on the planet, but there is always going to be somebody who doesn't like you. I like the quote, you could be the sweetest peach, but there's always going to be someone who doesn't like peaches. And so if that's the case, then you may as well live in alignment with who you are and what you truly want, and accept that people will misunderstand you, and people will dislike you, and you will be a bad guy in some people's stories. And over time, when you learn to do this, you learn to not rely on external validation and build up your own internal validation. Because when you're suffering with low self-esteem, you rely a lot on other people's validation. Do they like me? What do they think of me? I don't want to say no. I don't want them to think I'm a bad person. I don't want to upset them. And this is a really unhealthy mindset and place to be in, because we will forever be molding ourselves and sacrificing ourselves to meet the needs of others and not meet the needs of ourselves. And so in what ways are you not prioritizing your own needs? How are you currently sacrificing yourself to keep others happy? And if I could give you one challenge to start with, how could you start saying no? What is something that you're currently doing in your life that actually you don't even want to do, but you're just in the habit of people pleasing and saying yes to everything? Honestly, I can now confidently say there is no one in my current life who I don't want in my life. I've had to let a lot of people go, and honestly, I've never had as much mental peace as I do. And I feel like I really love my life because I'm able to live it authentically, because I live it how I want to live it. And the right people who respect that and understand that are the people who get to be a part of it. Because the people who are meant for you will be for you, and the ones who aren't, they will fade away. So try and get comfortable with saying no and setting some boundaries in your life. And if you don't know where to start, there's this book called Set Boundaries and Find Peace, and it's so great. Honestly, you'll learn a lot from this. But yeah, those are 3 things that I started working on when I worked on my own self-esteem, and honestly, I can say it did transform it. I hope this video could have helped you in some way. Thank you so much for watching.